Good morning, good afternoon, and good night.
And good evening.
I didn't, did he say good evening? Is that what he said?
Yeah. Yep. Good evening.
Yeah, well, you're a Jim Carrey aficionado, of course. So, you know all this.
Yeah,
You did Car Wash was a great movie, so what do you know,
I
right?
do. I still do. George
All right,
Carlin.
let's launch right into it. We have a former president who's a felon. Don't you just love it?
Yeah, you were pleasantly surprised last Thursday, weren't you?
I was absolutely shocked.
Donald Trump was
Absolutely
found
shocked.
guilty on all 34 counts of doing what we're not really sure what he did,
I
but
know exactly what he did. He falsified the documents. That's what he did.
yeah,
Now,
okay.
the legitimate see tell me how this was rigged. I can't wait to hear this. How did you get 12 citizens to unanimously find him guilty in a rigged manner? I'm not missing it. Tell me how that happened.
Well, you have a prosecutor who ran on a Get Trump
So
platform.
what? How many prosecutors run on a we're gonna stomp out gang violence, we're gonna clean up City Hall and get rid of all the corrupt. So what? Who cares? Why can't he do that? Why can't he do that? What's wrong with the DA saying I'm going to prosecute Donald Trump? We're going to stomp out white collar crime here in New York City. Good,
He,
go for
he
it.
didn't say that. He just said, I'm running on a Get Donald Trump platform."
For what he did wrong,
Yeah.
criminally wrong. Look, Donald Trump said he didn't even have sex with Stormy Daniels. Really? Do you believe that? Let me ask you, do you believe that?
Um, no, I'm. It seems like he sure had sex with her. What's the point if you don't? You don't
And then he
bang
paid her
her.
$125,000.
If you're going to put yourself through all of this, you better go all the way with Stormy Daniels
so
and
all I'm
let
saying,
Stormy do what Stormy does.
so do I think this is a major crime? Is this what I would have prosecuted him on? Was this the first trial I wanted to have about? Absolutely not. But notice what he's done with the other cases and being able to delay them. If it wasn't for this New York trial, we would have never had a trial pre-election. So
Did Bill Clinton pay Paula Jones $800,000?
I don't know.
He did.
Did he cover it up through falsifying business records?
That I don't know, but he did pay her. We're talking about apples and apples here.
Donald Trump can pay her off. There's nothing illegal with saying, I'm giving you $125,000 to not tell anybody. That's not the issue. That's perfectly legal. I could pay you $10,000 to not tell things you know about me publicly. I can do that. What I can't do is now deduct it as a business expense. That's what Donald Trump did. So you pay somebody off, hide it from your wife. Fine, I'm on board. You can't falsify business records to do that. And particularly in a political campaign. You can't use campaign funds and write off as a campaign contribution or campaign expense. That's what makes it criminal. That's what makes it a felony. Do I think it's a stretch? I do. But let's not forget there was a MAGA guy on the jury. He said guilty. I mean, that's
Yeah.
And all I look, once again, would I prosecute that case? No. Did I want that to be the first case prosecuted? No. Do I think Donald Trump is a criminal? I do. And if Bill Clinton had taken money and paid off Paula Jones and said, I renovated my house, I'm deducting that on my taxes, that's criminal. Look, Bill Clinton lied under oath. It's called perjury. He should have been convicted and removed from office for that. And I have no issue with that. And you know that. I don't know why the Senate were cowards. I don't know why.
So meanwhile, we have the whole, the Hunter Biden laptop is legitimate, after all of the denial for years and years and years by everybody involved, whether it's the Democratic Party, whether it's 60 Minutes and Leslie Stahl, whether it's anybody who opposes President Trump. So what Hunter Biden, I don't really care. Doesn't matter to me. He can fuck every crap
Joe
that
Biden, I don't care,
it doesn't matter to me, and I don't care whether he's found guilty or not. So let's look ahead to November, because we're going to have a man on the ballot in Donald Trump, who is a convicted felon many times over for the first time in American history. Right now, the polls say he's going to get elected.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the polls right now, because I think I think the everyday person on the street, it's not going to resonate. I think who it's going to affect potentially is independent voters or Democratic voters who would have voted for Trump. Lord knows who's out there who would have done that.
Mhm.
I think this could cost him the election, depending on what Joe Biden does between now and November. And once again, if his campaign is, I'm a better president than Donald Trump, that's not going to win the election. If it's, I'm a better man than Donald Trump, that's not going to win the election. If it's, I believe and support the middle class, I am with you. Donald Trump is a rich man who has not paid taxes in 20 years, who has broken laws to make that kind of money. I'm here for you. I'm here for you.
Donald Trump has broken, the tax stuff. Donald Trump hasn't broken any laws when it comes to paying taxes or not paying taxes.
Oh,
He's not convicted of anything.
I bet he has.
Convicted of anything.
That's true. But what he's done is, we know he's done because we've seen him, is he has falsified his income tax records to get loans, and then falsified his tax returns to not have to pay taxes on it.
Has he been convicted of anything when it comes?
Hasn't even been charged yet.
Right. So let's not even bother with that, because you know what? I don't care about their taxes. I really don't. I care about my taxes.
Wait, you don't care about that Donald Trump has not paid taxes in 20 years?
Has he broken the law?
That's not my question.
All right. Are you not an attorney?
I am.
All right. He has not broken the law.
How many Democrats run on the premise that billionaires get away without paying taxes while you in the lower middle class have to pay taxes?
They pay 90%. The wealthy in America pay over 90% of all of the taxes paid. I hate hearing about that.
I agree.
What I'd actually rather concentrate on is how inflation is up continually across the board, and how a small bag of groceries now cost me $85 yesterday, whereas when Trump was president, it cost me $39. That's what I care about.
And it's not because of Joe Biden. So you're blaming the wrong person.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
Absolutely. We don't have Donald Trump in office. But let me say one other thing.
See, there's your TDS right there. There's your because you know for a fact that your 401k was worth more 4 years ago than it is now.
We just set a new record in the stock market. That's my 401k, pal.
Okay. When you and Linda go to the grocery store, are you paying in some cases 45% more now than you were 4 years ago?
I'm not paying for it. Some things have gone up, some things have gone down. Inflation's high, it's coming down. But the president doesn't cause inflation. That's not the job of the president.
The government causes inflation.
The government was not any smaller under Donald Trump than it was.
The government causes inflation. They print more money. That causes inflation.
Okay,
private business doesn't cause inflation. How does private business cause inflation?
Well, because they raise their prices. That's how they cause inflation.
Why do they raise their prices?
Well, because they can gouge the public. That's how they raise their prices.
All right, who's gouging the public right now?
Chick-fil-A.
What, you only got one pickle on your chicken sandwich?
I want to say one thing about tax returns before you just go off it. You may be right that the wealthiest pay 90%, but they don't pay the same percentage of their income as I do.
So what's our solution to that, Ken?
Flat tax.
You and I both been calling for it for years, and it's never going to happen.
Now, before we leave Hunter Biden, does anybody think he's not a drug user? I mean,
the crackhead.
Absolutely. Is there any doubt?
By the way, he's the smartest man Joe Biden's ever met.
Well, there's a lot of smart men who are crackheads. I have to tell you,
He's the smartest man Joe Biden's ever met.
The fact that he's a crack user doesn't mean he's not smart. It means that can be reckless and stupid and a lot of bad things.
He's a fucking dummy. I mean, look at this guy. He is just a complete dummy.
You look at presidential families, a lot of presidential families, a lot of presidential kids haven't done so well. Some have done well. Hillary Clinton's daughter done pretty well.
What's she done?
Amy Carter,
What's Amy Carter done? She hasn't been a crackhead whore.
There's a bit
That's
of trouble.
That's a plus one for her.
Now, do you know Hunter Biden? Are you calling him a whore?
He's the male version of it. He's
Yeah.
a crackhead male whore.
Okay. You probably like his last girlfriend.
Yeah, which is that his stripper that he and his old man denied that he was the father of the baby of, or is that his dead brother's ex-wife who he fucked many times over?
You know,
you got to straighten this out for me.
Two people were engaged in that consensual sexual relationship.
Right, she's a whore too. Can you imagine?
Okay, so we done with the Bidens and
I'd be happy to move on.
Okay, what would you like to talk about?
How about some Caitlin Clark talk?
Yeah, I really want to hear your take on this because
so Caitlin Clark got blindsided by this WNBA player, Kennedy Carter, over the weekend, and it has predictably caused quite a kerfluffle. Angel Reese, of course, her teammate and former star at LSU, stood up and clapped. Kennedy Carter said afterwards, "I ain't answering no Caitlin Clark questions" when asked about it by the media.
Fine for not attending the press conference.
Right. And Angel Reese has come out and said that people are watching the WNBA now for me too. And they're actually not. They're watching the WNBA for Caitlin Clark. The attendance figures over the weekend in WNBA games, in games not played by Caitlin Clark, where she wasn't playing, the attendance went from 5,000 plus in one building to one game had over 10,000 fans. Everything was between 5 and 10. Caitlin Clark played 2 games. The attendance was nearly 18,000 for each game. They're coming to see Caitlin Clark. Bob Costas actually went on the record and said that this was a racial thing. And he's exactly right, because if Caitlin Clark was black, there's no way Kennedy Carter is doing what she did. It's blatant racism, but because it's practiced by an African-American woman, the media really doesn't care about it.
Oh, I think the media has really come out again. I mean, listen, I think there was a huge backlash against her. I mean, I saw a lot of black sportscasters. In fact, I saw Steve Smith, what's his middle initial? Stephen A. Smith, whatever.
Yes, yeah. I call him Screaming A. Smith.
I saw his segment, but there was a African American former basketball player was kind of saying, this is what you do with rookies. This had nothing to do with being a rookie. This had to do.
I don't think it does. I think it's she's an intended target, and I do. I think there's. No, actually, I don't. I don't think there's any element of this that has to do with Clark being the new kid in town, and we are going to show her who's boss. I think that is something that is practiced from time to time, but I think it was more so way in the olden days than it is now.
That was the cheapest shot I've ever seen.
Look, and there's a tremendous amount of petty jealousy too, and frankly, women can be catty and petty and very jealous. Caitlin Clark has come into the league. She came in with a $28 million endorsement deal from, what was it, Nike or Adidas? I can't remember.
Nike.
And had already been made millions of dollars through NIL in college. And I guess you could call her the Great White Hope if you wanted to.
I mean, some of the comments of Andrew Reese also said, what does she do besides shoot 3-pointers?
That reminds me of what Buddy Ryan, the football coach, said once about Chris Carter, the wide receiver. All he does is catch touchdown passes.
Look, what Caitlin Clark has done for the WNBA, every WNBA player should be thanking her, because you know what? If it wasn't for her, nobody would be coming to watch.
Their salaries are all about to go up because of Caitlin Clark, because there's going to be more revenue. They've already gone from flying. The poor things had to fly coach like the rest of us. Now they're flying in charters.
Yeah.
So Caitlin Clark has brought about a whole bunch of positive change for them, for sure.
Yeah. All right. You sent us a story about Withersfield, Connecticut, about the blue line.
Yeah, there was they're calling it the Thin Blue Line flag controversy. The town council there, the Wethersford, it sounds very hoity-toity. The town council voted to not fly the Thin Blue Line flag ahead of a fallen trooper's funeral, and that has become a major a major issue of controversy. They have chosen instead to keep the pride flag
Well,
flying.
they did
It's
offer to do
Pride Month.
they did offer to do the first responders flag. The problem with the thin blue line is that it's now being used by white supremacist groups and was used in the January 6th insurrection. The problem is it now has huge political overtones.
Oh,
So
they say it represents racism and antagonism to many, many people. And if you don't personally believe that and you fly at your own house and you think it means something to you, that is much more positive, said Emily Zambrello, a Democrat, of course, a member of the council. So what if January 6th used it? So what if
because the flag is now this it's neo-Nazis and white supremacists. That's their flag. They're using that flag. It'd be like using the Confederate flag for
don't some neo-Nazis and white supremacists also use the American flag, the flag of the United States of America?
But that's not the symbol of a neo-Nazi group. A
But don't
symbol.
they also use it?
Well, most of them use it upside down. Thank you, Samuel Alito. But the January 6th insurrectionists were using of course, the main pine tree flag, the heaven flag. But that thin blue line flag is the flag used by neo-Nazis and white supremacists in the last 10 years. They're using that flag. And there's no reason. There's a first responder flag that covers all first responders. It's used for lots of funerals for fallen firemen and police officers. There's no reason why you can't use that flag. This is one ultra conservative member of the council who's probably a white supremacist. I'm going out on a limb.
Listen to you.
Why else would he want to use that flag?
Just like me, people are guilty just by looking at them.
Why would he want to use that flag? There's only one.
Because it represents the thin blue line that the police always talk about.
It represents white supremacy and neo-Nazism.
When I see that sign, I don't think about white supremacy and neo-Nazism.
Well, you don't go to neo-Nazi rallies like I do.
Speaking of neo-Nazism, and as we record this on Wednesday, January 6th, it is the 80th anniversary of D-Day. D-Day occurred 80 years ago today, the greatest war achievement, I think, in world history. And I think my question is, could we put together a coalition now to do something like that in today's day and age, like we did 80 years ago?
I don't think patriotism is dead. I think we're a very divided country. But, I know some conservatives don't believe this, but Democrats and liberals love the United States of America. This is the greatest country in the world. I tell people all the time, we've had really bad times in this country. We've had this country was founded by British criminals for the most part. So, we had the Wild Wild West. We had, we decimated the Native American culture. We've done some really, really bad things, but we are the land of opportunity. And we are probably the most free country that has ever existed in history, ever.
No, question, but I wonder if we, when you look at Franklin Delano Roosevelt as president and Dwight David Eisenhower as the, Supreme Allied Commander back in the day, although Roosevelt certainly was president when the Nazis began to make their move over Eastern Europe and overtake those countries. But could Joe Biden or Donald Trump, take your pick, put together a coalition to fight, the war against Islam that we've lost so many to, whether it was after 9/11 or we've got Hamas now out of control doing what they do, and Democrats and Republicans in America are divided over that issue. So how could we possibly come together to fight if we were under attack? I question whether we could, and I certainly question whether Joe Biden or Donald Trump could put together a coalition.
Well, keep in mind that there was a long delay of us getting to that. There's many allegations that Roosevelt knew the atrocities and did not get into the war as fast as he should have. So, if there was ever a a better visible villain than Hitler to rally support to defeat him. You know, I mean, he was an exceptionally bad, evil person. So that helps rally the troops. I think that you know, Joe Biden is certainly not the leader that the past presidents have been. I mean, even George Bush, who was George Bush Sr. was not the really outgoing personality, had stature. Ronald Reagan certainly could have rallied troops, no doubt in my mind. He was a very charismatic person. So I think under some circumstances it'd be possible, but I think being divided and being so polarized would make it more difficult. I definitely think so.
Yeah, and certainly if you had somebody with the whole combination of evil that Adolf Hitler had, perhaps it's pretty hard to put that into context nowadays, although the war against terror that we've been fighting is close. But
but remember, even that war doesn't have the idea. I mean, when Osama
Right.
bin Laden was alive,
Right.
you kind of had a visible person, you know, with all the terrorist groups. Who's the identifiable character that you want to target?
Right. With bin Laden gone, they're it's a nameless, faceless opponent, and that is what makes it difficult. And to close things down here, because I don't know how far in we are, but tonight is game one of the NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. I have gone on record as saying that the Celtics will win this series, that is, in 6 games. I think we are finally going to get, Ken, as New England sports fans, we've gone 5 years without winning a championship, and my heart aches.
It's hard. I almost moved away for that. I know. I mean, Edmonton's in the Stanley Cup. I was thinking of moving to Edmonton.
Edmonton, you and Alberta, you seem like a perfect fit. You love winter sports. Your snowblower wouldn't start out there. It'd be great.
So I really, as you know, I don't follow basketball as much as I should. They look great. I mean, what I've heard, and you can tell me if this is true, that the conference, that that Boston won in an easier conference. I don't know if that's true or not. I didn't think Dallas was the strongest team in their conference. Who they beat in the last?
Minnesota.
Wasn't Minnesota supposed to be like the strongest team in that conference?
Yeah, well, they finished higher as far as the seedings were concerned, but and they vanquished the defending champions, the Denver Nuggets. So I don't get caught up, and certainly the Celtics caught breaks because Jimmy Butler was out for Miami in round 1. Tyrese Halliburton was out in round 2. Donovan Mitchell in round 2 and Halliburton in round 3. The Dallas Mavericks come fully stocked. Kyrie Irving's coming back to Boston. There's the villain that we all need. Speaking of needing a villain to hate, we have that. Everybody's talking about who's going to guard Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. My question is, who's going to guard Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for Dallas? And I think the Celtics have just much more depth and are a much better team. They are going to win the series in 6. I actually think they could win it in 5.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're right. I can't go out on the limb, but I'm going to say that I'm going to follow the guidance of my friend and sports guru, Mike Violet, and predict the Celtics in 6.
All right. I love it.
All right.
Go Green.
So we'll see you next week and have a great week until then.